Welcome and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch. I am your own personal sales maven here to offer you tips and strategies and techniques to master your sales conversations. Today is a part of the Mastering Excellence series, which means I interview an expert who is achieving a very high level of success in some area of their life or their business. And we kind of break that down a little bit. And I'm so excited to share with you today my guest, who is Nancy Linnerooth. Now, let me tell you about Nancy. She releases the subconscious blocks holding women entrepreneurs and other women leaders back so they can reach the next level of money, visibility, and ease. Drawing on 9 years as a Harvard trained attorney and 17 as a therapist, Nancy uses straight talk, humor, and EFT or tapping to end procrastination, self-sabotage, and imposter syndrome so that clients finally follow through on their dreams and create the lives they've always wanted. Nancy is the creator of the MVP Activator, the co-author of Your First Year, What I Wish I'd Known, Lessons from Women Entrepreneurs for Women Entrepreneurs, and a featured expert in the best-selling The Science of Getting Rich for Women. She's also the host of the EFT Breakthroughs podcast. And then I love this last sentence of her bio, all of which impresses her teenage daughter not one bit. Nancy, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Nikki. And it's entirely true.
That is so cute. The first time I read it, I was like, oh, I mean, I adore you anyway, but it's just so charming. It's so, so charming. Okay. So you're here and I'm super excited. One, I'm very excited about your brand new podcast. I mean, it's not that new, but it's newer. Right. And what you're doing in the world of tapping is phenomenal. Plus, I happen to, we've known each other for many years. You've been a client off and on over the years. It's just so fun to get to witness like this new level, this next level in your business and what you're doing. So my first question is, beyond the bio, tell everybody a little bit more about you.
Well, as far as the work I do, I work with women business owners and a few good men, but we don't really, we'll just stick with the
Same.
women for now.
Yeah.
All across North America and Europe. So as long as they're speaking English, I'm happy to help them out, and we do that all by Zoom. And I'm located in Seattle, but ever since I started this business, the coaching business that I do with the tapping, it's been virtual. So I used to do it by phone. That's how far back it goes. Wow.
Me too. My first sales training course that I gave was over an audio conferencing system. So, and my clients at the time were like, can we switch to video? And I was like, why? You don't need to see me. You can just hear me, which is 100% the reason why I also started the podcast versus at the time it was like, do you do a podcast or do you do a vlog? And I was like, I want to do a podcast so I don't have to be on camera. And yet here I am on camera every day.
Yep. Well, and they changed the whole podcast thing now. It's all, well, not all, but it's often video. Mine's always video. So there we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And thinking about the clients and the kind of results that your clients receive, I had such a blessing of getting to be a guest on your podcast, but a guest meaning that I got to be guided through a tapping session with you, which was so transformational. Um, and so I want to share about my experience, but before I do, I want you to share a little bit about your clients' experience of going through tapping and the kind of transformations that they've had.
Oh yeah, it's a it's very very interesting to me that I work with so many different women in all sorts of different fields, and so often they're having a block or multiple blocks that are the same across the board. Women, I love to work with women
Yeah.
because I want to have more women leaders. I think it will balance our world more.
Hmm.
And also, uh, we're coming with like extra baggage that we don't need in this world. And I love to be able to release the stuff that says, well, I can't be an expert, or I shouldn't be more visible, or I have to hold off and not make more money. Like the interesting things that come up, I even had one woman who was lesbian, and I had her rate this one block that it was niggling at the back of my mind. I said, I have to be taken care of by a man.
Mm.
And she's like, that's huge. I feel it. It's really powerful. And I don't know why, because I've known since I was a little kid that was not in the cards.
Mm-hmm.
But we get trained up in these expectations. We see them, we live them, and then they're holding us back now. So I love it when we can release one of those blocks and the world opens up. And you said, my clients have different experiences. Some of them, one session is enough.
Yeah.
That there's this one thing, it goes, they're on their way.
Mm-hmm.
And others have like a bunch of different areas to work on, or one area that goes way back. So there's a lot from childhood to clear away. And it's still faster than any therapy I ever heard of, and more effective. But it's that one could take a few months as opposed to a single session.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's so interesting to have, if you haven't done tapping as a listener, and I've only done it a few times and was exposed to it many years ago. And then when I met you, exposed to it again. But this last time when I went on your podcast, like I wasn't really even sure what would I tap about. Not that I don't know that I have tons of things to work on. It wasn't that, but it was like, oh, what would be like the appropriate thing to work on, for a podcast where people are going to be able to watch it back. And then the thing that I picked, I was so surprised because you always ask like, I'm trying to think of your phrasing, so please step in here, but it's like on a scale of 0 to 100, like how does this rate as far as like uncomfortableness? Is that how you phrase it? How do you phrase it?
How powerful it is.
How powerful it is. Yeah. And I remember thinking the thing that I was bringing into the room, it wasn't that powerful until you kind of asked me about it. And then like, it actually almost caused me to have like a gag reflex. I was so surprised at my reaction to it. And then by the time we finished the tapping episode, which was the podcast episode, that it like went from being this really intense emotion, like feeling in my body, to then kind of being like, I don't really even know why we're talking about this, because it just it kind of doesn't rate at all anymore. It was so surprising. And the rest of the day, I remember walking around going like, how do I think about this now? Just to see if it would change.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like my brain was almost like, why are we even having this conversation? Like, it's a nothing burger.
Yeah. If this can happen with clients where they come in with something huge and it's overwhelming, and we tap, and within the session it goes away, and they will tell me, oh, it's no big deal. There's nothing, but they forget the fact that it was a big deal. You at least remembered, so thank you. But it's called the apex effect. I didn't make it up. It's something that's known in the field, that it's as if we let go of something that really isn't ours, and we go back to being ourselves, and we can forget what we like. We don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah, it's so interesting because when I was doing guided NLP sessions for some deep work, that was one of the things that kind of, I will say, as the guide, could be a little bit discouraging or kind of annoying sometimes, because somebody comes in and they're like, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is like a really heated thing for me. Like I'm in a 9.5 or a 10. And then you guide them through the process. And at the end of the process, sometimes it's, 15 minutes, sometimes it's a half an hour, sometimes it's an hour. And at the end of the process, they're like, okay, so where does that, how's that rating for you? And they're kind of like, why are you asking? It was like such a dramatic difference. And I remember thinking like, I don't think I could do just NLP guided sessions, because I find it unsatisfying for me as the guide. I don't know if that's the same for you, but I know that's one of the things I love about my work is the feedback from clients of coming back and going like, wow, this was such a difference, right? Like where I thought I was as far as sales and where I'm feeling now, Nikki, like I know the difference. I don't get that with NLP sessions. So tell me, how is that? How does that go for you?
Well, I love it when they say it's gone. And I'm taking notes. I always take notes. And when they tell me that, oh, this is 97% powerful, I write it down, and then I will by the time we get down to, oh, there's nothing there, it's a zero, I'll say, wow, okay, it came from 97 down to zero. And sometimes I'll see them kind of jolt, like, really? Was it that high? But because they've seen me taking the notes, they trust me.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
for
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I love this. I love this. Okay, so we're going to kind of get in here and like dig in a little bit and see where this goes, because one of the things I really wanted just your take on from this very kind of NLP process that I usually go through in these episodes. The first question I always ask is, if I got to stand in for you for a day, how would I behave? How would I be thinking? And the context that I really want to think about here is a little bit of a little tweak here. And it's this idea of, if I were standing in for a woman entrepreneur who keeps not following through on this very Nikki language, revenue generating activities,
Hmm.
what would you, in your role as a tapping guide expert, what would you look at first for her?
Well, I very broadly across the board, I would
Yeah.
ask her to tell me more about it. Does it
Okay.
happen in only certain times? Has it always been that way, or did it just start after she had a failed launch, for example, or something like that? And so she'll be telling me the story, and giving me feedback on what she sees as the issue. And I'm listening like crazy, because sometimes she'll just tell me exactly what the problem is.
Hmm.
Well, I can't put out those social media posts because I never look good enough. And so then that becomes, oh, I don't
Okay.
look good enough to be on video or something like that.
Right.
And and sometimes she'll tell me, oh, I know exactly why I'm not getting the revenue generating out there. It's because if I make money, it'll all go to my ex-husband or something like that. Okay, so
Okay.
sometimes people are self-aware, but not usually not, because this is usually a subconscious rule or belief that's getting in the way. And so with that revenue generating activities, what I'm often going to be looking for is, I'll start with money, because that's the obvious one, and they want to know that I heard them, and
Yeah, yeah.
and it's often there that there might be a money ceiling. That's a very common thing. Pretty much everyone has a money ceiling. You only allow yourself to make as much money as keeps you feeling the way you felt growing up, until you raise the money ceiling, or change it in some way. But then you can often then hit the next ceiling. So I might look for that. I might look for things around what her childhood or her family, her parents said about money, or the way
Hmm.
they treated it. So generating would probably be more along the lines of, uh, the money wasn't coming in. We talked about how there's never enough, something like that. Sometimes it would be a parent who, the money came in, but they got rid of it right away. So there might be something around money isn't safe, money's dangerous, something like that.
Mm.
So, and there's a number of different ways you can look at that. It could be disloyalty to a family member, usually a parent, but sometimes it's a sibling, sometimes it's somebody who's already died.
Mm.
But it wouldn't be loyal for me to make more money than my brother or something like that.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different money issues and blocks that are out there. And I already mentioned the one, I have to be taken care of by a man, therefore I can't make more money, right?
Yeah.
So things like that. And sometimes that's all we need, and we're ready and we go. But sometimes it's not really about the money. It's what would happen if the money was coming in. And so I might ask, okay, well, let's say you had lots of money coming in. What would you be doing differently? And sometimes that'll bring up something like, well, then I'll have to leave my husband, or
Oh.
then I will have to hire somebody. And then we
Uh-huh.
can get into the fears that I won't be a good manager, or I will be too responsible for them, or I'll be overwhelmed, I'll have to work too hard. So it's all sorts of areas to look at there. And usually they've given me a clue when they're talking to me about it, about where I should be putting my focus.
So I want to jump in here. Because as for the listener, as you're listening to Nancy kind of go through these different scenarios, it could be this and it could be that, and it could be, and if this is something that is relatable to you, this idea of like, gosh, I just keep kind of getting in my own way when it comes to that following, like that follow through for making sure I'm doing revenue generating activities. There may be one or two, or I don't know, maybe more that you heard that you go, oh, maybe, but there might be one that you're like, that's me, that's mine, right? And the one of the things that I have found when you're doing tapping with Nancy, or at least this is my experience, is that you actually are tapping while she's having this conversation with you. So she's like a private eye. Like she's like an investigator, she's asking really smart questions, and she's also posing comments or statements for you to say and then finish the statement while you're tapping. And this is again like so impactful because at least for me, from my experience, is that and I want you to talk about this idea of like what's happening in the body because you're tapping. So it's like, you're seeing what kind of bubbles to the surface. And I would, like I said, in my experience, I was kind of surprised in this last tapping situation that I had with you, kind of surprised at like where, like when we were talking about like, where did this come from? And like what I even brought up. And this was something from a very young version of myself that actually was somebody else's story, not even my story, but I had taken it on. Um, so it's just such an interesting process that you go through that you are, kind of digging a little bit when somebody makes a comment, like figuring out like what avenue are we going down, and then you're having them tap the whole time and she's walking you through it. So you're on video with her and she's, showing you where to tap at the time, and you're kind of moving around your body at least. And I don't know if this is different if we were in person, but there was like we were tapping like the chest, the face, the forehead, the like your hand, like the side underneath like your I don't know like where you would what you would call it, like under your armpit,
Mm-hmm.
right? Kind of back, and then
Looking
and
like
you
the monkey in the zoo, right?
yeah, and like going at the top of your head. And so it's this whole process of tapping, but this idea of like also throwing out these like, and if this were to happen, then you're like waiting for them to like fill in the blank. And you're also repeating things that Nancy is saying. So you're hearing your own voice in your own ears, and you're allowing your brain to give you the answer. And so this is one of the things that I love so much about tapping. So anything you want to comment on there? I just want to.
Well, there's all sorts of ways to tap, I'm a magpie. I'll take any that seem to work and bring them in the moment. One of my favorites is what you're describing. I call it fill in the blank. I don't know where I got this from. I might have made it up. I don't know. But for me, if we're tapping and I have you say part of a sentence that I've said and then finish it with whatever comes to mind, that's allowing your subconscious to just speak.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to just figure out what the subconscious is doing without letting that sort of bubble up, as you were saying. But when it does, and it sometimes I've seen people say, "Oh, I don't really believe that," but it came up. They say it, and that's the subconscious, which has internalized something that they decided when they were very young, and
Mm-hmm.
they've outgrown it now, but their subconscious still holds on to it. So that filling in the blank allows that to come up, and I've used it in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it helps us figure out what age you were when you
Mm-hmm.
internalized that, and that gives us the clue, well, what was going on around you then. So I do like that. And the tapping piece, I mean, we could do it without the tapping, but I think the tapping helps in that it is a way to, technically, it downregulates your amygdala. And lowers your cortisol levels, brings the stress down. So instead of trying to do it right, you can be feeling, okay, I'm relaxed. I can just let whatever's there come out. And so that is a part of one of the ways that I will get to what's going on in the subconscious. Why is it there? Can we now change it?
Yeah.
So,
So when you're going through a tapping experience with somebody, um, I mean, when I think about the experience that you and I had, I feel like things shifted fairly, like it felt smooth. It didn't feel
mhm.
like there was nothing that felt forced. It was just a very smooth conversation between the two of us that I was kind of also kind of investigating about this belief that I had about myself, and mine happened to be about money as well. Not revenue generating activities, but something else. And then I'm saying that because if you're interested, go listen to the podcast episode, like check out Nancy's podcast. Um, but it was just it felt like it flowed. Do you have experiences, or have you had clients experience where it's like um it feels like I don't know if I can let go of something. Like I've been holding on to this for so long that I'm not sure. Like, like you even brought this up of like somebody goes, well, maybe it would cause me to have to, if I made more money, it would mean I had to leave my husband, or it would. And I remember years ago being at a training, and I was a participant at the time, and it was prior to me studying NLP. And we were actually talking about an NLP training. And one of the women in the room, I heard her have a private conversation with the teacher and say, I'm really concerned about going any further with anything to do with NLP because I feel like it will cause my marriage to fail. And I was like, I don't like that. So that seemed like such a weird
Mhm.
connection, but you brought it into the conversation as well with tapping. So I just want to touch on that.
It can come up, yeah. It can come up in different ways. The one you just described, like a realization that, well, if this happens, then I might do this. And then I will assure them, look, this doesn't make you stupid, and tapping won't make you do anything. It just takes away that old programming that's been pushing you one way, and you still have options. It actually makes it easier for you to make the choice that's right for you
Hmm.
now, in the here and now.
Yeah.
And that sometimes is all they need to be, oh, okay, now I can let it go. Sometimes it's like a question of who will I be when I'm no longer acting this way or feeling this way.
Mm.
And that will come up, and then we can explore that. Well, who could you be? What would it be like? Would it be safe? If you decide you don't like who you become, you can come back, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's very interesting because logically we could have that same conversation and we could maybe reach the same conclusions, and yet with the tapping, it allows everything to settle down and become more accessible. Well, do I really want this? Do I not want this?
Hmm.
So, speaking in generalities, but
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of have gone off script here of my typical NLP questions, but I feel like hopefully it's as interesting to the listener as it is for me to have this conversation with you. What have we not talked about yet when you think about tapping and what's possible for people, or like, yeah, anything that comes to mind of like, what have we not talked about yet and addressed around tapping?
Hmm. It's, I'll tell you, from my perspective, I never know what's going to come up in a session. I mean, I have some ways that I will use sometimes if I don't know, well, let's try this. But often people will tell me later on, oh, it was that thing you did. That was it. And I'm like, did I do that? I can't remember. So
Hmm.
I'm so in the moment, going with what I. Some friends say I channel, but since I don't know what that is, I don't know. But what I can say is that you can go to different tapping practitioners, EFT, TFT, other kinds as well, and there'll be some similarities, but there'll be differences. So people bring different things to their practice, to different experiences, different knowledge, different wisdom. And for me, I'm very happy to go where I've been going with women business owners, and the blocks around money, visibility, ease. Overwork is a big thing for women, and I'm always open to what else comes in. So you'll see me do this in one of the episodes, which I know because I was able to go back and see it. I can remember now because I watched it. But it was something where a longtime client brought up something different, something we hadn't ever done before, and I thought, oh, well, let's go and follow what's going on in her body and have it speak to us and all that. And so it's I kind of lost your question, but I'll say tapping can be extremely flexible. And you can take it in a number of different ways. I wouldn't advise somebody who hasn't really learned it to try to go work with somebody on trauma, for example, that there's a whole lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
But if you're working on your own and you're feeling comfortable, it's usually pretty safe to just try something. I wonder if it would work on this. I wonder how, if I tried it this way, would it work better? And as I've gotten to this point in my career, I'll try things I've never done before with clients, and usually they end up going like really fast, really quickly where they want to go. And if they don't, that's okay. We'll just go switch over to something else. But it's, I guess I'll finish with tapping is very flexible and can cover a whole lot of ground.
The one thing I just realized I overlooked here was asking you for what does EFT stand for? I'm sorry I didn't ask you that. And I feel like somebody listening right now is like, duh, Nikki, that's like a basic question you should have asked at the beginning. So I apologize if you're feeling that right now as a listener.
It's actually, it is, more people talk about it as EFT without ever saying what it means.
Uh-huh.
But what it was originally known as was emotional freedom techniques.
Yes, that's how I
So
learned it too.
people who've heard about it long ago, they know it's techniques. Now a lot of people who are just learning it now will say an emotional freedom technique, like it's a singular. But
Oh, okay.
and the idea was that the emotions were such a big part of what the tapping could address. As that became the big thing for Gary Craig, who named it emotional freedom techniques.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that so much. One of the things I also didn't ask you at the beginning, but I'm going to do that as we start to wrap up, is what are the different ways that you work with clients?
Sure. Most of the way I work will be one-on-one. And we do, as I said, it's over Zoom. I have different packages. Some people for some more extensive work. Some people just want to come in and do one thing and it doesn't go all the way back, so we go really quick. Some people want to like do it all at once, so we'll do a half a day and twice in a week. And so I've got those. I will also have a small group of women that I'll work with at a time. So no more than 5 women. And we start at the same time, we end at the same time, so that they get to know each other, they get to support each other, they get really comfortable so that we can meet 12 sessions, 90 minutes, and everyone gets a love seat, which used to be called a hot seat, but no one wants a hot seat, but a love seat, that's nice.
Love seat. That's actually why I call my spotlight sessions because I didn't want to call them hot seat sessions because that language doesn't resonate with me, but I love a love seat.
Yeah. So, and I love to do that. And usually I'm working with somebody for more than one session. Now, actually at this point, the only way to get a single session with me is to be on my podcast and do a single session when I do those.
Yeah.
But it's more like I want to be sure that we're covering things. So I'll make it so that we'll have at minimum, at this point, I've got 5 session programs. There's one additional thing I've added recently for my certain clients. I will do a recorded hypnosis audio, and then they can listen to that and use that hypnosis track to input some positive messages. So the tapping is all about the negative. People freak out about that. They're like, I'm not supposed to say negative things. Well, the tapping is where that power lies to get rid of the negative. And for most people, getting rid of the negative is what they need, and then they're off to the races. Some people need that additional piece of inputting a positive message, a new rule, a new belief to go into the subconscious, and hypnosis is the way to do that.
Love it so much. Okay, so one of the things I like to ask my guests before we end the session is, or the podcast, not the session. I'm in coaching mode today. As we end our podcast, is what is something that people would be surprised to learn about you? Actually, I have a few questions for you.
Okay.
Because it's pretty impressive, right? Harvard attorney, therapist. Like you have a very impressive pedigree, I guess is the word that comes to mind, but maybe that's not the right word. But what is something else about you people would be surprised to learn?
All right, well, I'm probably going to take away a bit from that Harvard pedigree thing here, but sometimes people are surprised to discover that when I was in law school, I spent most of my time with the Harvard Law School Drama Society doing plays and musicals and things.
Oh,
So, there were a bunch of us in there escaping from the law.
I didn't know that. That's so fun to learn. The other question I'd love to ask everybody is what's something that brings you pleasure and or joy right now?
Right now, we just got my offspring back from college. She was a freshman at Whitman. Brought her back a couple of weeks ago, and she's just blooming. Things are going so well for her.
Oh, good.
And I just love to see things opening up. She's
Yeah.
exploring. She's trying new things. She went from being really focused on one path to now like the world is her oyster, and it's wonderful to see that.
Love it. Okay. Next question. What is something exciting going on in your business right now?
Well, that would have to be the podcast.
Yeah.
It's so much. I mean, I did these one single sessions with different guests, and right now I'm in the middle of a sweep where I'm taking one woman through a whole story arc. Basically, she started with me with the tapping a couple weeks after she'd filed for bankruptcy, and we over the course of the 3 months it was, she by the last session she was saying, I am living the entrepreneur's dream. All of these things had changed for her. And so I'm excited to have that be part of my podcast so that people can go and see what an actual working with me would be like. Not a single session, but the whole change and what comes up along the way. So, and sometimes I do solos because you taught me that one, Nikki.
I'm glad you're doing solos. I love solo episodes too, but I'm proud of you for doing them because I think some people are like, I'm not going to do a solo episode. That's too hard. But I'm glad. I'm really thankful that you're doing them. Okay. What is a good way for people to get in touch with you?
Well, I'd say they can obviously go to my website unblockresults.com, but something that they might want to do is get my procrastination breakthrough kit.
Yes.
Say that again, procrastination breakthrough kit.
Yes.
And that is a way to try out some tapping on their own if they've never done it before. It's a couple of videos in there, shows you how to do the tapping, the points to use. Also, there's a script that they can use to release their stress. Just bring your stress down. Tapping is fantastic for that. And then there's a video that they can tap along with me if they find that they're procrastinating doing something. And it should lower the resistance to taking that action. And they can use it anytime something comes up that they're like, I don't want to do that. So if they're avoiding some money generating activity, I don't want to post on Facebook. I don't want to post on Facebook. It's no fun. Somebody will see me, whatever.
Yeah.
And it can help them just get to the point where, okay, I'll just do it.
Love it. Love it. Okay. And how do they get that?
Go to unblockresults.com/results.
Okay.
It's right there.
Unblock result. No, I just said it wrong. Unblock results/results. Is that right? No.
Unblockresults.com
.com. Sorry.
results.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll put this in the show notes too for
Yes.
everybody. But I just want to make sure we said it on the air. Okay. Nancy, I adore you. Thank you so much for saying yes to coming on the podcast, sharing about tapping, sharing about what is possible. And if you, as a listener, are thinking, I think I've got some blocks here, Nancy's your gal. Go connect. Definitely grab her resources. That's fantastic. So thank you, Nancy. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. My absolute pleasure, as always, to be with you.
Oh, okay. And for you, the listener, would love to hear what was a takeaway for you from today's episode. What, if you feel comfortable sharing with me and or Nancy, like what was the thing that came up as you were listening to her list of like the things that are kind of getting in your way of, this participating in revenue generating activities. I'd love to know if you're willing to share. All right. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening.